All right, what's going on, guys? How's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody had a good week/weekend. Here in the United States, we actually celebrated the 4th of July, and it was pretty nice out here on the West Coast. So I hope everybody else had a good holiday as well, for those that actually celebrated it. And everybody else, I hope you had a good weekend. One of the items that comes up a lot in tech is basically the well established companies versus the kind of nimble startups. And it is something that is a known thing in technology, especially in Silicon Valley, where you have these startups that are really nimble and innovative, and they're able to really come out with new tech very easily because they're just bootstrapping it and they don't have any other responsibilities. At the same time, on the flip side, you actually have these large, huge companies that have a lot of resources at their disposal who are also trying to be innovative and trying to basically build what these startups are doing, but they don't quite have the imagination or even the internal structure in order to accomplish that. And one option for those large companies is actually buying those smaller fintechs. But more and more, we're seeing these smaller companies actually refusing to be purchased because they actually know the ideas or the innovative technology that they're developing, how much it's really worth, and it could be better off for them to actually just sit on it and grow into a large company themselves. A good example of this is Facebook. I'm sure when Facebook was first coming around, that a lot of people didn't even think that it would grow into the multi-billion-dollar corporation it is today. And I'm sure that there was offers from other companies to purchase Facebook, but they held strong and just became bigger than a lot of those other companies that probably wanted to purchase them at the time. Well, the same thing is kind of happening within the fintech space, where we actually are seeing a dynamic between the large businesses in fintech, the legacy financial companies that are not able to innovate like a lot of these new fintech companies are able to innovate. And a lot of the larger companies, even though they try and create services that will actually work closely, work like the startups technology, or offer the same services, they can't quite get there, and they end up having to fold whatever product or service they're trying to offer their customers. So this article actually goes into exactly what I'm talking about, and it's a good example of some of the uh, problems that these larger financial services companies, the legacy financial services companies, are going to have in the future. Uh, the legacy financial services are trying desperately to gain a competitive edge over the innovative fintechs. Despite having all the traditional advantages, network infrastructure, solid balance sheets, regulatory approvals, physical footprint, and established business relationships with the older generation, they still seem to be fighting a losing battle. Fintechs, on the other hand, focus their services on the tech enabled millennials and Generation Zers, who demand tailor made services accessible to them on their smartphones, giving the best value of their money. And their explosive growth speaks volumes about the success of this model. Global venture capital funded deals topped $39 billion in 2018, more than a 100% increase over the previous year, spanning 1,707 deals, according to CB Insights research. Over the years, we have seen the big banks get even bigger with their money making model off of the customers. ATM fees, money transfer fees, foreign exchange fees, credit fees, and the list goes on. All of this added burden on the customers made them feel like banking is a privilege and not a service. With no alternative, however, they continue to get ripped off. Enter fintechs. And the transformation in the financial landscape for the better. So, how have players like Revolut, N26, Chime, Acorns, MoneyLion, and others been able to beat the legacy financial system giants at their own game? The simple answer is innovation. While the new entrants to the financial ecosystem were economically disadvantaged compared to the incumbent players in the form of big banks, they had nothing to lose that could prevent them from implementing an industry disrupting strategy. The fintechs have accumulated millions of customers in a very short span of time by adopting a three-pronged strategy, introducing innovative products, targeting the unbanked, and reducing the sky-high service charges to a bare minimum or nothing, since they have no overheads to take care of as the traditional banks do. People with low credit scores or in far off areas with no banking services or countries where the system is broken are their primary markets. This mobile friendly model has brought immense value proposition in the form of neobanks. The traditional banks have been hard at work to ward off this competition in the form of fintechs with partnerships, acquisitions, and their own digital services to target the younger market segment. While the former two have been relatively successful, the latter has fallen flat on its face. The biggest example is the sudden demise of JP Morgan's bank app Fin, which was launched last year in June, touted as bringing fully digital banking experience Fin by Chase. The app that was expected to bring a host of fintech features to capture the younger generation was supposed to evolve based on user feedback. As of now, all the customers of Fin have been transferred to the traditional Chase mobile app as it became fintech roadkill. Some of the other big banking names who have dipped their feet in the fintech space with their own endeavors are Wells Fargo, Citizen Bank, MUFG's PurePoint, Bank Center's Rising Bank, RBS's Metal. Run into the end here. All of these projects are aimed at cutting down the influence of the ravaging fintechs, which has reduced the profits and the following of the legacy banks. Makes you wonder, though, if one of the biggest banks in the world, JP Morgan, could not sustain its shiny fintech app. How well are these banks going to fare, and more importantly, for how long? Despite possessing highly skilled talent, big bucks, and immense resources, big banks are struggling with innovation against the more agile fintech startups favored by a younger generation which is fed up with higher fees, negligible returns, and sluggish service. The traditional banks will need to step up their game or get ready to be run over by these fintechs. And I would argue that we are already seeing the bigger. I mean, we're seeing JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs isn't really it's more of an investment bank. But we're seeing a lot of these bigger banks actually embracing crypto now. I mean, a year ago, 2 years ago, you would never even hear them utter those words, that they actually, they're looking at Bitcoin and some of the cryptos and saying, oh, these are actually investments now, when they were saying the exact opposite thing, a year ago. So you're seeing that shift, but then there's also the shift of, if most of what these large banks do can be automated through things like smart contracts and cryptocurrencies, then what is the point of actually having these large institutions? I know that there are a lot of people out there that feel better about somebody in human form being behind, as a customer service role. And I don't think those will go anywhere. I think that we'll still see those. But with smart contracts and a lot of these new fintech startups that we're seeing that allow you to invest your money in different ways, that use more algorithmic trading rather than actual humans, I can just see a bunch of the middlemen that sit in between at these large institutions just not being in work anymore. There's really no need for them to be around. So this is just going to accelerate. We're really, I would say, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago was really kind of the rise of fintechs, and they've been just gaining steam ever since then. I mean, fintech doesn't necessarily, crypto is included in fintech, but fintech is much bigger than just cryptocurrency. So it is something that is going to grow from here. I think this last year, especially 2018, in the cryptocurrency space, we actually saw a lot of infrastructure being built out that really is helping the space right now as it's gaining steam again. So I believe that as we move further and further towards 2025, we're going to see more and more of the fintechs really grow to challenge these larger institutions that have been kind of sitting on their hands and not really doing much because they haven't had to do anything for the last 100, 200 years. It's really the same model, other than the rise of like the New York Stock Exchange and stuff like that. But I thought this was an interesting article. It is showing that their big banks do have a worthy challenger in the form of fintechs, and I would argue that as DeFi grows and there's more and more automated methods for using decentralized finance and for people to have another way to invest their money, these fintechs are just going to blow up, and these banks better have a way to fight back, or else they're going to be left behind. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. And that's all I got for today. Thanks.